Hey guys, we are here for another episode of Powerful Badass Humans. Today I have the phenomenal Amy Wan. She is an absolute rock star. She's actually a client of mine at ProExcel, which is super exciting to have her here. She's had an incredible journey. She is the founder and CEO of a really amazing company called Sagewise. Thank you, Amy, for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, duh. So before we get into it, just quickly tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I am a former attorney, and basically I started my career in the federal government. State Department, Department of Transportation, Department of Commerce, left federal government and DC, moved back to California, became general counsel of a real estate crowdfunding startup, and then partner at a boutique law firm. And one day woke up and realized that the legal industry is just not what I want it to be. I think the practice of law is super inefficient. I don't think there's a lot of access to justice for normal everyday people, really only for like the super wealthy and large corporations. And so I left the partnership at my law firm to start a legal technology company. And that has basically evolved to become basically a blockchain company where we are basically trying to change the legal system as a whole. We're trying to change the paradigm in which the legal system even exists.
Yeah, which is fucking phenomenal. So I'm super excited about having Amy here because her story is seriously amazing, and I really think it's important that it gets out there because she has done what many women in particular think is not doable. And that would be that this woman raised a significant amount of money, basically 9 months pregnant. Like I saw her walking around with her belly and just like and handling it like a fucking boss. Raised like how much did you raise?
1.25 million.
1.25 million pregnant, you guys. It's a big deal. So specifically about that, tell us about that. What was that journey like? What was going on in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, so, I will say that it was not exactly planned. So it really caught us by surprise, right? And, prior to finding out that I was pregnant, I had this crazy idea, the idea that was Sagewise. And I thought, oh my gosh, it's such this big, ambitious thing. And then it's funny, when I found out I was pregnant, I think it actually motivated me to go forward with this idea, with this company, because I looked at myself and I was like, wow, I think there's nothing left to lose, right? I am a pregnant minority female founder in the blockchain space. I'm like, this is like as uninvestable as it gets, right? And I have like this big aspirational idea. There's nothing left to lose, so I might as well just go for it. So that's basically how it started out. And, I would say like, especially in the first couple weeks, the first couple months, I was kind of bashful about it because I was like, oh, well, maybe investors might not want to invest in me if they know I'm pregnant.
I remember.
And yeah. And I think the turning point really came when it was towards the end of my first trimester, and we were about to go out and really start preparing to raise this round. And, you and I were having conversations about like, well, should I let the investor know? Should I not let them know? Like, how do I handle this whole conversation? And I thought, on one hand, it's kind of dumb. Like a lot of male founders have pregnant wives and it's hard on them as well, but it's not like they walk around disclosing like, oh, by the way, I'm about to have a baby, right? So I was like, well, why should I have to say that? And then the other part was, I think there was a little bit of fear at the back of my mind that, oh, if they know that I'm pregnant, they won't invest in me. And yet at that time, I was jetting around the country, talking on sometimes like 3 panels in 1 week about blockchain, about smart contracts, about my company. And you were like, well, you're the type of person that investors should want to invest in, because despite your being pregnant, you are handling your shit and you are hustling and you are working way harder than a lot of male founders. And I think that comment caught me off guard. And I thought for a second, I was like, you're right. Like, investors should want to invest in a person who is going to get shit done and execute no matter what happens to them in their personal life. And so I think with that change in attitude, I kind of just went forward and, like, to a certain extent, I think I even, like, when I was having these investor conversations, I even forgot that I was pregnant, right? It just became an everyday part of my life. I didn't wake up and think, oh, I'm a female founder, or I'm a pregnant female founder. I was just like, I'm a founder. Let me get my stuff done.
Yes. God, that's so important. And I love that you brought that up. It's all about mindset, right? And
Yeah.
I always coach clients and tell people, do not walk in with a disadvantaged mindset. You are a human amongst other humans. You don't think of yourself as a woman at a disadvantage, as a pregnant woman at a disadvantage, none of that stuff. You're walking in there with humans, and yes, they want to invest in you. You're a fucking badass, not letting anything hold you back.
And I would say, like, honestly, I think even being a woman has helped me to a certain extent, because the blockchain industry, I mean, if you think the tech industry is very male, the blockchain industry is even more male. Yeah. But they've got all these blockchain conferences and panels, and it's all male panels, and they're always looking for female panelists. So, everyone else has to pay to speak. I get invited a lot for free.
Yeah, right? Which is amazing. Using it at your advantage. Yes, I love that. That's incredible. So, well, then let's ask you this one. What has been your biggest failure or struggle thus far?
I think it was, going back to what we just talked about, like really getting over that mental mindset or framework of, oh, I'm pregnant, maybe people might not want to invest in me. And I think once I got past that, then, you're a lot more confident when you walk into the room, as opposed to, like, if that's going on at the back of your mind, you walk into the room in this like sheepish manner. Yeah, absolutely. And I would assume that has helped you in regard to pushing your startup forward and really getting it to where it can go. Oh, I mean, there's no motivation like a ticking clock, right?
So how are you handling being a new mom? How old is your baby now? Like a few months?
4 months.
4 months,
yeah, 4
guys.
months.
4 months, okay? 4 months old. How are you handling being a very new mom with a baby who's probably barely sleep trained at this point in time, and building your company? And I think you said you want to raise another round probably sooner than later. So how are you handling all of that?
Sure. You just have to, right? The choice is you handle it, or if you don't, your company goes under, right? So you just got to do it. I think the most important thing that I did prior to actually having the baby was making sure that I had a really good support network, and you were very helpful with that, right? And so I made sure that my husband was on board, and so he provides a lot of not just emotional support, but like right now I'm doing this interview with you, he's taking care of the baby, right? I hired help, and I made sure my parents were on board as well, because they live about an hour away. And sometimes when I need them, I call them up and they come over and they'll take care of the baby for a day. I mean, next week I have to go to Spain and Boston, and I'll be gone for about a week. And so the baby's just going to live at my parents' house. And that's what we got to do.
I love this. Okay, because this leads me to a question to ask you about mommy guilt that a lot of women deal with. So, I mean, and I'm a mom, in case anybody doesn't realize this, and I'm a single mom of twins, okay? And my boys are 6, and a question I often get is, how do you deal with the whole mom guilt thing when you have to get things done? But in my opinion, guilt is just self-created. Not my opinion, you guys, this is the truth. Guilt is self-created. There is nothing good that comes out of it. So just take it out of your mind. There's no room for it. It's just negative energy. There might be a little bit of, I will miss the child, of course, because it's your baby. But aside from that, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think mommy guilt is a very biological thing. I didn't think I'd have it, and I definitely have a lot of it, right? But I think it's also like you have to take a step back. And so there's a couple concepts here, right? So first of all, I think some of it is very socially imposed, right? There are definitely other moms or parents out there, and they're like, "You're doing what? You don't want to stay at home with your baby?" And I'm like, your experience is not my experience, and I don't need you to guilt trip me and tell me how to raise a child or be a parent, because that's just shit I can handle my own way, right? No one has said there's one parenting method. And the second thing is, sure, I would love to sit there and be with my baby all day, but I think my specific personality would also drive me insane, right? I feel like I do have to have a life of my own. And thirdly, I want my child to grow up and be very independent, right? And he can't do that if I'm constantly hovering over him like a helicopter parent and constantly there. I feel like a lot of this like guilt stuff it's very recent. It's like this recent parenting phenomenon. When I was growing up in the 80s, like my parents were both at work. There was like 1 month of maternity leave, right? And we walked to school every day, and we grew up perfectly fine. And I think it's also a very American phenomenon. So, when I went into all of this, I knew that I did not want everyone else's experience to color my own.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love that. I love that. So what is what's your inner dialogue like? How do you speak to yourself? How do you relate to yourself?
Oh, that's a tough question. I think it's, and we've talked about this a lot, but
it's evolved a lot, I'm sure.
But I think it consists of like, consciously recognizing that I am my own worst enemy, that my competitors are not the other startups out there, but I'm competing against myself and my any like lingering doubts or uncertainty, that are coming out from like my subconscious or whatever, right? And sitting there and figuring out how do I deal with it and how do I overcome it.
Awesome. Yes. And I will say that I have seen your inner dialogue evolve significantly.
I'm just going to say like, a year ago when I first started talking to you, and I remember I was like, oh, I want to raise a friends and family round. Oh, I want to raise $30,000. And you were like, what? Why so little? And I was like, why would anyone ever invest in me? And you're like, no, the right question is, why should people invest in you, and why would they be crazy not to, right? And so again, everything, it's all just a crazy mental game.
You guys, like seriously, the evolution of growth that I've witnessed Amy have during this year or so that we've been working together is amazing. The first 3 months we started working together, you not only launched your company, but you raised a round and got your first paying customers, which was like incredible by itself, just by some, helpful coaching to get her out of her own way. I mean, you're already capable of all that. It's just removing the cobwebs and the fear and getting you out there. And then she raised freaking over $1 million pregnant. It's just the best story ever. So what advice do you have for women out there? Whether they want to start a company, whether they have their company, whatever it is, they're facing some type of struggle. What advice do you have for them?
Don't think of yourself as a woman. Don't get out of bed every day and think, I'm a female founder. Just get out of bed and think, I'm a founder, I'm going to get my stuff done, right? Because if you self-impose limitations, those are the ones that are going to hold you back.
Yes, yes. Have a mindset that is very much favorable to you, and don't put yourself in a disadvantaged mindset. It's so, so, so important. And how do you feel about women empowering women and women not empowering women?
I think it's one of those things where like it can be so helpful and so hurtful at the same time, right? Like if you have women that not only don't help other women, but, actively thwart them, that's so much more damaging. And we've seen that over the past couple of decades, right? And you've seen that in investment banks and law firms and things of that sort. I think if we all help each other get to the top, get to the C-suite, go start companies, I think the world would be a better place. I'll tell you this, like after becoming a mom, I am so convinced, right, that women are so good at getting stuff done. Because if you talk to a lot of parents, right, it's the mom that does everything. Mm-hmm. And sure, there are plenty of fathers who contribute a lot, but I think in most conversations you'll find that the dad is kind of they definitely don't handle everything as much as the mom. And if we can take that energy and that capability and channel that towards entrepreneurship and founding companies, I think we're going to have a lot of really successful women.
Man, amen. Like I always say, women's leadership is just such a powerful form of leadership because we can do so much while being accountable for everybody else. And just the level of power that we have if we get out of our own way is absolutely unstoppable. It's infinite, really. It's amazing. A beautiful, beautiful note to end on. Thank you so much, Amy, for taking the time. I know your child is probably waiting for you right now.
Thanks so much for having me.
And of course, no, thank you so much for being on. This was amazing. And I will talk to you soon.
Okay. All right. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.